Lani.
I know you do. That's why I was like, I have to do this with Devri.
Well, hello everyone. We are live, and I am very happy to introduce Lani Forbes and Devri Walls. Thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we are celebrating book 2, The Jade Bones, which I feel like you have to say such a cool title. You need a dramatic voice. You can't just casually be like, oh yeah, The Jade Bones. You have to put the dramatic Hollywood voice into it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, don't give her permission. She will dramatic voice
I love dramatic voices.
I opened Pandora's box and I have no regrets whatsoever. Well, I'm not gonna
go crazy.
I'm not gonna spoil what Jade Bones is about because it is book 2, but just to let everyone know, it is the sequel to The Seventh Son. As you can see, the color schematics for your books are chef's kiss. It's gold and green and black. Everyone can see your gorgeous background. But essentially we have, it's Mayan influenced. Yes, Mayan is the main culture that influenced the books.
Yeah, there's it's mostly Mayan. There is some Aztec and some Zapotec and Olmec as well.
Awesome. So Mesoamerica, is that the correct term to still use now? Mesoamerica influenced?
Yeah, it's kind of based on specifically the more ancient Mesoamerican civilizations.
And it is amazing and awesome sauce. And it is so cool to have a book that has this culture in it, because you don't always necessarily see it in YA fantasy that much. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a prince and he needs a wife. And because it's ancient times, it could never be done peacefully. And if you don't become the wife, you just might die. And no one wants to die, but you might not necessarily want to marry the dude. And then once that's concluded in book 1 and you have magic and all these amazing things, that's a very sporadic way to describe how amazing this book is. But you have sun magic, you have water magic, you have all the awesome things. And I'm going to stop rambling because I'm going to pass it off to Devri, who is going to do a much better job of explaining this than my rambling brain at the current moment.
No pressure.
But no pressure at all.
It was beautiful, Constance. It was beautiful.
But before I pass it off, I will collect, and in another dramatic voice here, I'll turn on the dramatic host voice, everyone, or stewardess voice. To your right-hand side is the general chat. Down below is where you will see if you have a question for our authors, please make sure that you do indeed ask a question. They are at your mercy. Take advantage, because questions, if you ask me, are kind of the most fun part of an event. And then also, the best way to support a book is indeed to purchase said book. Thank you so very much for asking. And if you would like to purchase either one of these authors' books, all of their books, I would highly recommend you hit that purchase book button down below. And you can even get a signed book plate. Now, on that gloriously voiced note, I'm going to pass it off to Devri, and I will see you guys at the end of the event. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. Okay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. It is so much more fun to talk to you guys than an empty space. So, yay. My name is Devri Walls. As you know, this is Lani Forbes. And I think we're going to be talking about both The Seventh Son and Vinators today. Mm-hmm. And we are really excited. We've been kind of collaborating on how we want this to go and what we want this to look like. But I think we decided we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. So I'm going to have Lani go first, and then I will fold that up so then I can kind of roll into our first question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Lani Forbes. I'm the author of, see if I can turn my camera here a little bit, The Seventh Son, which is book 1 in the Age of the Seventh Son series, and The Jade Bones, book 2, which just came out February. I don't even remember. When did it come out? It's it came out a few weeks ago.
Dude, it's COVID. Everything was last week.
It's true. It was last week. Yeah. But
I don't know.
So exactly. It's just my brain's so fried right now. Yeah, I'm ready to get out of the house. I am the daughter of a librarian and an ex-drug-smuggling surfer, which is what my bio says, because I feel like that pretty much sums up who I am pretty well. I love books. I love the ocean, but I'm also a master's student studying addictions and trauma because I love working with individuals and families that struggle with that kind of stuff. And so I am a huge passion of story and how story can affect the human experience and ways that we can learn and grow through story. And so I'm really excited for my first series, especially The Jade Bones and The Seventh Son. As you heard Constance give her excellent elevator pitch, it's basically, I jokingly call it The Hunger Games meets The Bachelor, where, like she said, it's basically, there's 6 princesses presented to the new emperor, and he must select one of them to be his wife, and the ones he does not select will end up being sacrificed to bless his marriage to the one he does pick, and throw a bunch of magic and a bunch of really fun political intrigue and the world possibly ending in this fantasy kingdom that is inspired by a diverse Mesoamerican culture and mythology. And so it's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about it.
Yay, thank you. Okay, as I've already mentioned, Devri Walls. I cannot compete with a bio that I am the daughter of a librarian and an ex-drug-smuggling convict. Like, what am I supposed to do with that, Lani? Seriously. I cannot compete with this. I've been writing for a little while now. I've been writing and publishing for about 8 or 9 years. I have 8 books that I've published in a variety of different methods, but I don't even know what that was. Forgive that accent. Just forget that just happened.
We're doing a bunch of weird voices tonight, apparently. It's okay.
Constance started it. It's not my fault. So book we have in the Vintagers series, however, which is the one that I am currently promoting, we have book 1, book 2, and book 3. Vintagers is, there's a lot that happens in Vintagers. The best way to explain it is 2 teenagers who pass through the St. Louis Arch to an alternate dimension where all the stories exist. So paranormal fantasy, anything and everything mashed up in this very dynamic world. And it has just been a blast to navigate this along with the characters and kind of discover how these characters play alongside each other. And of course, there's dragons and magic and shapeshifters that are snarky and a little bit, nice to look at.
And so, as I say, very sexy shapeshifters.
Yes, I know. I have a little fan group, and they're so cute because they all fight over the shifter. I mean, it's slightly scary that they get so attached, but also so cute. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about, Lani, because I know the answer to most of these questions, so I know what the good ones are. So tell us where the inspiration came for The Seventh Son. Like, how did this all start?
Well, I think I mentioned it in my bio a little bit. My family actually lives in Mexico, and so my sisters and I are down there quite a bit. And I've just always been really fascinated with ancient Mesoamerican history, specifically like the ancient Mayans and Aztecs. And I've actually gotten to go down and do some research in Belize and Guatemala as well. And so I've gotten to tour some of the ruins in Tikal. I've actually gotten to go into the ATM caves in Belize, which they believe was potentially thought to be the entrance to the underworld itself. And I've gotten to actually hike into these caves for several hours and see artifacts and actual skeletons of sacrifice victims and a lot of that kind of stuff. So I've just always been really fascinated by the history. And I've always wanted to read a fantasy that was inspired by inspired by some of this history, because it's fascinating and I don't see very much of it. And so the more I was doing research into the mythology, I was really inspired by the Aztec myth of the 5 sons, which is this idea of the world being created and destroyed multiple times. And I just loved that myth, and it was really interesting to me. And so the story really kind of started to take shape out of this idea of the world being created and destroyed multiple times, and having to, and the rituals in my story are made up. They're not historical, but that this society that I've created in this fantasy world, they have to follow these rituals or else the world will end again. And so, of course, what could add more tension than throwing a character in the middle of that struggles with questioning, why do we do certain things the way we do, and will the world really end? And just this idea of institutions and establishments that are in place that, can we have the freedom to stand up and ask questions of why did some of these come from, or where did these things come from, and why are they the way they are? and having the freedom to ask those questions. And so that's really kind of where the story came from for me.
Oh, I love it. And I love Mayana is such a strong character in this. And I had a question for you later that I'll just go ahead and throw now because it ties into the answer that you just gave, which is why was it so important for you to have this character that really bucked the system entirely? Because there's a lot of messages and themes throughout this book. So I know it's a little bit of a vague direction on that, but like what drew you to that direction coming at the story? Because you had all the inspiration, right? We could have gone any way with it. So why Mayana bucking the system?
Well, I think it's something a lot of people can relate to, especially teens. And I know it's something I relate to very deeply, is this idea of sometimes we get put into these institutions or establishments, or we're part of these, groups, or where there's just a lot of expectations put on us and we have to act a certain way and we have to be a certain way. And you start asking why. Like, why is this the role that women play in our society? Or why is this institution teach these particular things? And I think for me, I always wrestled with wanting to ask questions. And I was usually the one that liked to stand up and be like, well, why? Why is that way? And I would get in trouble a lot because a lot of times people don't like when you question the system. And so I don't know. I personally really related to that. And I think that's a pretty universal human thing that I think a lot of people can relate to sometimes, and that frustration of feeling confined and forced into a box and wanting to push back and ask questions of like, why does this box even exist in the first place? And so that was a huge thing that I felt really pulled to write about. And the more I did, the more I kind of found myself like, I can't stop and I have to keep going with this. And yeah, especially, which is appropriate, I think, for International Women's Day today.
It is.
So, yes.
It's so appropriate. And you and I have had a lot of conversations about that box.
Yes.
And yes, how pleasant it is to try to squeeze into the box. So I did love seeing that come through in your work. It was really, really beautiful. Really beautifully done.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where do we want to go next? Do we want to talk about world building?
Yes. And just to kind of, I love the world that you created with your Venator series so much, because especially because you read the descriptions of some of the stuff. And I remember like from the first book specifically, I don't want to like give anything away, but so much of your descriptions of your world, especially in Venators, is so like vivid. And I have that one scene of them like going through this like mud river with like the hands grabbing at them. And so I don't know. I would love to hear about how are you able to take all of the mythologies and all the amazing stories that you were able to and create this world that is the world in Venators?
Well, sometimes I get really big headaches. And I throw a fit. No, I really love, I think the thing that I like about fantasy, and I know we've talked about this before, I love the freedom. Like, yes. I really love being able to like mix and match, because like the river of mud that Lani's referencing is
that seems so creepy.
There's like fae, there's like creepy fae under the mud, and if you stop moving, they'll like grab you and pull you under. Also, you should not call them names because that also ups the chance that the same thing will happen. But yeah, no, I think I just love being able to let my imagination run completely wild. Like what else can I add? How dangerous can we make this? How fun can we make this? And for me, it really becomes kind of an art project. Just piecing that together. And I don't have to follow the rules of, like, no, 2nd Street is only a mile away from 3rd Street, and it can be no different thing than that. So yeah, I really like to have fun and play. And I know you, with your world, like you were able to go and actually visit and see some of those things, but then you still took it and made it your own as well.
Yes.
Can you talk about like where some of the differences came in from like what was historically accurate versus where you went with it?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of the cultural details are where I tried to stay historically accurate, but the actual kingdom and world itself in my story is entirely fictional. It's fantasy. It is not meant to be like an actual representation of and the Aztec Empire or the Mayan Empire. It's its own unique empire. But then where the historical details come in is like how the society was structured. And so if you actually study how the Aztec Empire was set up, there was like the main city state, but then there were individual city states that kind of were aligned with the main city state. And so they would conquer and like incorporate these different city states, but they were still kind of allowed to function as like their own little kind of mini country, but then they still had to pay homage. They still had to submit to the overall empire. And so that's very much how I designed the world of the Chicome Empire in the Seventh Son. Is there's 6 individual city states, and they kind of each have their own royal family. They each have their own patron god or goddess. They have their own royal family that is a descendant of that patron god or goddess, but then they're all still under the umbrella of the Chicome Empire, under the rule of Tolan, which is the capital city-state, essentially. And so that is very historically accurate. And then a lot of the details, like the architecture, the food, I tried to pay really close attention to a lot of those details specifically to make sure that it still brought the world to life in a way that was historically accurate in those details, but like the empire itself and how it was set up, and is that there weren't actually city-states that performed a sacrifice every 3 months to bring the rain. But in this world, I was able to incorporate that and use a lot of the political structure, but use it to create my own world with it.
Lani is amazing. Like, she does so well with these historical inspirations. Like, we approach things very differently in that way. Like, I like to just kind of free fall into all the things and be like, what can I play with? And Lani really is amazing at taking historical facts and events. Like, and I know this not only because I've read Seventh Son and Jade Bones and they're both amazing, but because she's pitched me several other of her ideas that she's working on, and they're all just so fun. She really excels at doing that, and it's really cool because it's just very different than the way my brain works, which is kind of the beauty of talking to artists. You see how everyone else works. Okay. Favorite character to write between not favorite character, because I think that's a jerk question.
Oh, that is. Yeah.
Everyone always asks me, like, what's your favorite character? I'm like,
You're asking me to pick between my children. Yeah.
Also, people ask me like favorite ice cream, and I'm like, ice cream is good. Why would I pick a favorite? That's just dumb. But I like all the things. So I don't even know where my question. Okay, I'm like, I lost my question in my bantering with myself, which is a skill set all its own. So what character was the most fun for you to actually write? Because there are some characters that just fly off the fingers, and then others that just take a bit longer to get a handle on.
That's true. I think for me, in book 1 especially, my favorite character was actually probably Yoli. She's the fire princess, and if you meet her, she just has like the driest sense of humor, and she's kind of reminds me of like that goth chick that you knew in high school that like is just, she's kind of quiet, but then like she like says these zingers that you just are like, what? And so she was honestly probably my favorite to write, just because her character felt so real to me, and she was just funny. I like writing the really funny characters. And so Yoli was definitely one of my favorites in book 1, especially. And in book 2, we actually meet a new character. His name is Ochish. And I don't want to give too much away about him, but
he's very pretty.
I'm pretty sure he's like my new favorite character.
He is a little dreamy, I'm not going to lie. But then like Lani, like 3 or 4 lines of Ochish and Jade Bones, I was like, yep, okay. I'm done.
He is the handsome death prince from the enemy empire, who's kind of got that like, he's like the death prince, but like he's really funny, and I don't know, he's just
funny and charming and a deep thinker, and I like you for who you are, not because you're gorgeous.
And he likes poetry, and everyone knows a handsome death prince that likes poetry. I'm like, so yes, I'm seeing the comments. I'm like, yes, I'm there with you. I loved him, and I loved writing. I loved writing him, especially. Someone thought I said anime empire. Enemy empire.
We also blend genres. It's cool. So, and I'm really the author. Okay, go ahead.
And I'm really excited because Ochish actually gets his own POV chapters in book 3. And I have to say, writing, because I loved writing his character in book 2, but to actually like write characters from his POV, or write chapters from his POV in book 3 was probably the most fun I had with writing book 3, because he's just kind of a smart aleck, and it's really fun to write his character. So I really enjoyed him.
Yeah, the snarky ones are always the most fun. Yeah. Always. And we know how much I love dialogue.
Yes. And I am in love with one of my favorite characters, other than, of course, the sexy shapeshifter, who, let's face it, everyone loves him in your books. I really love your character, Gray, because he's kind of the picked on character, and like he's one of my favorites because he's, I don't know, he's that sweet, but like the genuine guy that like everybody loves, like, you know, the handsome, like bad boy. And Gray's kind of like that sweet guy that's like the friend that never gets noticed. And I really like him.
You know, and I thank you for liking him, because he gets overlooked by everyone when he really is absolutely the most, like, if you want boyfriend material, like he's definitely a more solid choice than some of the others. But yeah, he gets overlooked because he has feelings, I think, which heaven forbid we give him male feelings. That's the end. But yeah,
so which of your characters was your favorite to write?
Oh, Beltran. He's just easy.
Like, my sexy shapeshifter. Yes.
Well, yeah, and he's one of those where he has all the answers. Like, he legitimately does, because he's he's extremely intelligent, and he's very, very old. And so he quite often actually knows all of the answers, and then oh yes, just the snark and the calm. He's very unflappable, and he balances out every scene he's in. Like, I can always tell. I mean, obviously I can tell when Beltran's not in a scene because I'm writing it, but it becomes very apparent very rapidly when I'm like, why is this so much harder? Beltran is missing. So no, yeah, definitely he's my favorite to write. But I do really like writing Gray's emotional, like his internal dialogue scenes, because I think those are some of the most beautiful passages in the book, because they get really, really deep and meaningful. Yeah. It is. That's so cool, Kristen. Sorry, we have a Gray name in the. Okay, I'm sorry. We'll move on.
I like that too.
Yeah, it's super fun. Okay, I want to know. I asked her this question in the last interview, and she, I think, internally rolled her eyes at me then. So we're going to see hold straight face this time.
Okay.
So book 2, when we move. Actually, the true eye rolling question is, Lani, are you wearing real pants or pajama bottoms?
I'm not answering that.
Dude, come on! I'm straight up wearing Hogwarts pajama bottoms. Just answer the question.
I'm wearing yoga pants, so they're kind of an in between of pajama pants and regular pants. So
see, she's one step up for me. I am absolute pajama pants. Okay, so in book 2, when we look at the Jade Bones, we visit the underworld. Mm-hmm. So one, I want to know how, like, was the underworld difficult for you to write? But also, I then want to know if you would be able to survive the underworld in the way that Mayana and that's a real live question. In the way that Mayana and Akin have to do in this story.
I would definitely not survive this underworld that they have to transverse. I think I would die very, very early on, especially. Yeah. The underworld was actually super fun to write because, like I said, I like to draw inspiration from history itself. And so a lot of the underworld mythology that we see in the Jade Bones, there isn't a whole lot of detail available in the mythology. Like, it kind of gives you maybe like vague descriptions. And so I kind of had to take that and like, okay, well, what would that look like for me? So for example, one of the layers is the place where bodies hang like banners. And so I'm like, okay, so what would that mean to me? And how can I use this to torture my characters mentally and psychologically? And so that was fun to get to do.
You did good on that section. It was very psychologically torturing. Like we probably can't give spoilers on that, but yeah, it would do a number on someone for sure. That
was one of my favorite scenes to write. So like I said, getting to take some of the history. One of the cool things about the underworld mythology, specifically from the Maya version of the underworld, which is Xibalba, there is the mythology of the 3 rivers, that you have to cross 3 rivers in order to reach the city of the dead. And so one of the rivers is a river of blood, a river of scorpions, and a river of pus. And so, yeah. So one of the places where I took a little bit of creative license there is instead of having them cross a river of pus, I changed it to a swamp because I could not make my character swim through that river. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. But we
gotta toughen you up, lady.
I don't know. Do you want to read about someone swimming through a river of pus either?
Probably not. That's pretty
no. Yep. No. So instead, I just added monster spiders that are just as terrifying. And my husband still is mad at me for adding that chapter because he's terrified of spiders. And I talk about how when they step on it and it squishes, and my husband's like, oh, I hate that part. But I've gotten a lot of readers tell me that they really like the spider part. So I think that's kind of fun too.
Fair trade-off. All right, I'll give it to you. Okay, I have a big question for you, and I actually haven't asked you this one before.
Ooh, okay, new question.
Okay, so throughout both books, but it really, I don't know, I almost think it's harder in book one, but they do address this in both books. Aka and Mayana continue to make some very, very high stakes choices based on love. And high stakes, like of the highest stakes, right? We're talking like life and death and like kingdoms rising and falling. So you, as the author, is love enough? Is love always enough? What do you think?
Well, to not get too deep into things, I'm a huge believer in human attachment. And I don't believe that we as human beings are ever meant to operate in isolation. And I think we crave human connection in a variety of forms, be that, romantic love or friendship or family connection. So for me, I think love is the ultimate motivator for anything that we do as humankind. And like I said, that could be romantic love, but that could be other forms of love as well. And so for me, I think there is no higher stakes than love. And I think, someone said, especially during the garbage fire that was last year. Yes, exactly. And I think if anything teaches us from 2020, the importance of human connection and love, I mean, it's being separated from each other and realizing that I truly believe that characters and human beings, we can go through the hardest situations in the world, but if we have human connection, we can make it through. And so for me, yes, love is worth it. Is it always like the romantic love that we think of between the like, oh, I love him. Of course, I'm a romance writer. I want to say, yes, of course. And that's the hopeless romantic in me that you're always laughing at me about.
I laugh at it a lot.
It's true.
I won't even apologize for that.
I am a total hopeless romantic. And if you follow me on Instagram at all, I posted a funny thing. My agent laughs at me too, because I'm always instantly like, and then they fall in love. And my critique partners and my agent are always like, slow it down, Lani, slow it down. I'm like, but I want them to be in love.
Serious?
So,
yes. We actually,
yeah.
Lani and I saved each other a little bit during the COVID lockdown because we were both really struggling to create. And so we started doing Skype sprint sessions where she was working on book 3 and I was still working on 3 of mine, right? Because I'm on 4 now. Yeah, so I was still finishing up 3. And we would be going back and forth, and she would be like, then this horrible thing happens, and then they kiss, and I would be like, no, stop it,
no. Lani. Yes. Yep.
Really? No.
Nope.
So yes, she has to have someone to pull her back, otherwise there's just bird singing.
It's the Enneagram 4 in me. I'm just a hopeless romantic, and I just love.
At first I thought you had more to say, and then I was like, oh no, wait, she's done. Love. Oh, yep. Okay.
I just love.
Oh, so funny. Okay. In book 2, book 2 is laid out very different than book 1. Because book 2, all of a sudden we are bouncing back and forth between 2 stories, and Yemenia gets her own like 50% of the book. So, which I loved. I loved Yemenina's story, which of course Ochus did totally play a part in, but that's fine. So, out of all of the princesses, though, what was it about Yemenia that made you want to give her so much story time in book 2?
Well, I think, listen, not to give any spoilers for book 2, but, you know, so much of book 2 does involve being in the underworld. And so I wanted a character that could be a POV character from kind of the overworld of what's going on up above. And I have such a heart for Yemenia because I feel so bad for her in book 1 that she just gets attacked. She gets, she's her dad forces her into this selection ritual and basically, tells her that I'm sending you as a sacrifice. Like, I don't even think you can win. Just you're my sacrifice. And she just constantly feels this barrage from herself internally, but then externally. And so I really wanted to focus in on her character and give her a chance to shine and not just be the best friend character, but to also be a protagonist in her own storyline. And so I loved that she gets her own romance and she really gets to learn that she has self-worth. And she learns that she, can't let anybody else define what she's worth outside of herself. And so I don't know, I really loved that lesson that she needed to learn. And I think it's one that a lot of us can relate to. And so it was really fun for me to get to write her POV, to give her a chance to shine. Plus she's a plus size character, which I love getting to see some representation of myself. And so I really loved her character and I really loved her POV and getting to introduce that in the story.
I loved everything about it. And I think there's so many of us that relate. Like, the plus size is awesome because we don't see enough of that. But in addition, just feeling like, the one that nobody notices. I know there are a lot of young girls that feel like that. So I think it's beautiful that you gave her her own story where she truly finds her own value and worth. And of course, the fact that Ochus sees it immediately is excellent.
Yes, that always helps.
It does. It really does. Okay, so I'm trying to think. Let's see. So we've got 8 questions here. And
okay.
So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and flip us to questions.
Yeah.
So if you guys have anything else question-wise that you want to add, start throwing these down here. I'm going to work through these, and hopefully we should be able to get to all of them. If we go through them really, really fast, I have a couple more that we can hit, but I think we'll be good. I think there's good. Okay, so Lani, are there any commonly accepted myths of these ancient cultures words are so hard, that are widely accepted but are not true? Do you know?
Yes, actually. So one of the common misconceptions I think about the ancient Mesoamerican cultures is that they were really bloodthirsty and loved sacrificing for the sake of sacrificing. And I think that is a really common misconception and kind of a dangerous one because, you assume that like it's just all bloodthirsty and there's no purpose to it. And that's not at all when you actually study the history of it. In fact, when you looked at like Aztec warfare, for example, a lot of times when they would do warfare, they wouldn't just kill indiscriminately like we do in our Western culture for, warfare where it's just like kill each other. The purpose was actually to like capture enemies. And so the goal was more to capture than to kill. And then when sacrifices were done, it was very much done. One, they don't think it was done anywhere near to the extent as is often portrayed, I think in media, but they very much tied sacrifice into this idea of repaying debt. And that's kind of a huge idea in the Seventh Son series that I really wanted to stay true to specifically was they believed that the gods sacrificed themselves and sacrificed their own blood to create humanity and to save humanity after the world was destroyed. And so they believed that there was power in blood. And so when they performed a sacrifice, it was to repay this debt that was paid for them in the first place. And so they would, so a lot of times if they captured soldiers, they would use the captured soldiers as a sacrifice, but it would usually be done like later. It wouldn't be done like on the battlefield. And so it's really interesting. There's a great website called mexicolore.org or .com. I have to check. It's on my website. But there's some fantastic articles written by actual professors that talk a lot about that. And so they talk about that there was very much a purpose for it. And it was this very, very deeply religious significance of repaying the debt that was paid to save them. And so it wasn't just this, like, it had a very specific significance. And I tried to stay very, very true to that in the story.
Awesome. Is there any cultural significance to the colors you chose for your cover, the gold, black, and green?
So the cover designer actually kind of let me have a say in this a little bit, which I was really excited about. I really wanted to use a golden sun. And so just the black background I thought was really good because the black, like I said, this is kind of a darker story. We are talking about sacrifice and we're talking about a lot of kind of scary elements. And so I liked the black background to kind of represent some of the darkness of the story, but then also the gold sun to represent like kind of light in that darkness. And then jade was also very, very significant, especially in Mayan culture. It was tied to water. And if you read The Seventh Son, my main protagonist, Mayana, is the descendant of the water goddess. And so the jade is really significant in that it represents water, which is a huge part of the story too.
And they are stunning covers.
I love the covers.
Yeah, just stunning. I know I forgot to tell you the other day, my my screenwriter friend that I've talked to you about a few times randomly messaged me and was like, "Is your friend Lani Forbes, did she write The Seventh Son?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" And he was like, "Oh, I just saw her covers and they are amazing and totally make me want to read it." And I was like, "Yes, they do." Okay, what scene or section of this book gave you the most joy to write? That's an awesome question, actually. I don't think
like that.
Worded the with joy before. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. In book one or book two, I'd say book one, I love emotional tension in books. And so for me, so much of book one is Mayana wrestling with this decision to be true to who she is and what she believes, or to kind of give in to the system. And so she wrestles with that through so much of the book. And there's a scene at the very end where it's kind of like this big climax scene where she really kind of makes her choice. And to me, that was just such an emotionally satisfying scene to write. That gave me so much joy of just, because I think that was that part where internally I related so much to her character, of that wrestling of like, do I just give in to the system? Do I just give in to the pressure? Or do I stand up for myself and what I believe? And to finally make that choice is a beautiful thing. And so I love that scene in book one. In book two, I'd probably say one of my favorite scenes was this. Like I said, I kind of said a little bit about how Yemenia's journey is this journey of realizing her self-worth. And there's just a really beautiful scene that she has with the mother goddess where, I don't know, I feel like the mother goddess kind of challenges her a little bit, and she's holding this little doll version of herself. And then at the end, the doll is smiling at her. And I just, I don't know, I love that scene. Gave me so much joy because it was like that same moment where she makes that choice of like, am I going to let other people define my worth, or am I going to define it for myself? So those are always my favorite scenes to write, are those scenes where you've seen your character wrestle with something almost the whole book. And then you see them finally make the choice of what are they going to choose. Yeah. And that part is so satisfying as an author, I think.
And I love that you put that particular scene in there, because I think that that's an important thing that a lot of people don't realize, but especially young people don't realize. And that is, we go out, especially in the social media age, and we look for likes and approval and all these things to tell us that we're okay. And you can get that all day long, and it will never, ever actually make you feel approved of until you decide that
it's that choice.
Are worth something. Yes. And nothing else will do it. And so I love that you have that scene in there, and that it's so representational with the doll kind of reinforcing, an outer representation of what's happening on the inner for her. So I think that was just beautifully done.
I want to hear your answer to that question too. What was one of your favorite scenes that gave you joy?
That gave me the most joy to write. Oh man, these books are a little dark. Okay, let me think. This is going to be a really weird off the side answer, I think. Oh wait, can I even give that without being super spoilery? There's a scene in book 3 And Gray, it's pretty obvious what Gray's trauma is throughout the series. And again, this is so hard because I can't give too much, but it's a dark, heart-wrenching moment, but he has this almost monologue section where he is everything's coming out, all of these things from his childhood, and what he realizes through this is that the traumas that he endured, that he always blamed on himself, were not his fault at all.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to set that down finally and realize, like, I was a child, I had no control over my situation, that this isn't an accurate representation of reality, and it gave me joy to write it because those topics are not talked about enough in literature, especially with male characters, and especially dealing with that inner freedom again, that change of inner perspective, on how to heal that and let that go. So even though it was a heart-wrenching scene to write, it gave me joy that I was able to put that in print for someone else to find, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And I think so much of story is about transformation. And I think that's why we are so attracted to story in general, is because we love seeing these characters transform and learn and grow, because we as the readers transform and learn and grow along with them. And so, as an author, to get one of your characters to the point where they make this change or this realization that changes their lives for the better, it's encouraging, and it's encouraging for us as the readers too, to be like, wow, well, maybe if this character can do it, so can I. And that's what I love so much about good stories.
Exactly. They can be life-changing, and they can be life-changing in whatever way the reader needs them. And that's my favorite part, is having readers be like, I read this and it made me think this. And even though that's not actually what I wrote at all, the fact that they could take that theme and apply it to their life,
to themselves.
Yes, in the way that they needed it, is just phenomenal. Okay. That was okay.
Okay.
Moving on. What are you reading for pleasure right now?
You're laughing at me, aren't you?
else has any idea what is going on? Lani, what are you reading for pleasure right now? Do not lie to these people, Lani. Do not lie to these people.
Well, I'm in a master's degree program right now, and so unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of time to read for pleasure. I've honestly been reading. I'm taking a class right now on trauma and abuse and disaster, which is like a really light, fun topic to read about. So I'm reading all these really great books about these horrifically traumatic experiences and having to like write papers on them. And it is not the most fun thing in the world to read. So I'm like not reading anything for pleasure right now, but I'm in my finals week this week. I cannot wait to start reading. And Devri's laughing at me because I've been complaining to her about how I have not been able to read for pleasure much lately.
I know, I'm a jerk. She's never invited me back again.
So I did manage to squeeze in there because over Christmas break, I got really obsessed with the Bridgerton Netflix series because, like I said, hopeless romantic here, anything romance. I'm like, and my soul needed a little bit of a break from all the trauma stuff. So I did binge read like the next two Bridgerton novels that take place after the show because I had to know what happened next. So I binge read those.
Oh, excellent. I've been reading a lot, so I'll pick up the slack here. I am halfway through Once and Future, which is by Alex Harrow, which is excellent. I'm thoroughly enjoying that. Nonfiction, I finished Cassandra Speaks, which is amazing, and I recommend it to everyone. I also adore pretty much almost anything that V.E. Schwab writes. I'm a big fan of her Darker Shade of Magic series, though. Highly, highly recommend it. Okay, let's see if I cannot crack up in the middle of the next. Okay. Actually, I think, Lani, you answered this one. How much input did you have into the cover of the book? I think we kind of touched on that you had a lot of input in that. What kind of magical affinity from your story would you like to have? And is it the same or different from the one you think you'd actually get? Oh, tricky.
Ooh.
That
Wow.
feels like I swear that's like a karmic question. Like I want to fly, but I probably
Realistically, yeah.
turned into a rock. Congratulations. All right, go ahead, Lani.
I think I would love the power of water probably just because, like I said in my bio, I'm the daughter of a surfer and like I miss the beach so much. And I don't know, I have this affinity for water. And even like, I love being by water. Water is so healing and relaxing to me. And so I don't know, I feel an affinity towards water. So I'd like to say that's the one I'd get stuck with, but knowing my luck, I'd end up with like fire.
I think that's such a bad thing. Oh, poor Lani. Can wield fire.
Yeah. I'd be happy with fire too. That'd be pretty cool. Although I wouldn't mind healing.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool too.
Very cool. All right. Let's see.
Mysterious Galaxies posting the links to the next 2 Bridgerton books.
Nice.
Thoroughly enjoyed them, just saying.
Let's see. Davey wants to know how they would find out what Enneagram, is that how you say that?
Enneagram.
Yeah, number they are.
Oh, okay. I'm a huge nerd. I'm a huge Enneagram nerd. Yeah, I have a book on it somewhere.
She made me buy it. I'm wondering if it's like
there's a really great book called The Road Back to You. So if anyone who doesn't know what the Enneagram is, it's a personality typing. It's kind of like the Myers-Briggs personality types where you have like INFJ or ISTJ or something like that. But to me, the letters are so confusing and you're like, I'm an INFP. And people are like, I have no idea what that means. So I love the Enneagram because it simplifies personality types into these like 9 numbers. And so you're one of the 9 numbers. And then usually you kind of lean towards one of the other sides. So I'm a 4, but I lean 3. So I'm like a 4 wing 3. And to me, I love studying all the types. It's just really interesting. And there's some great websites you can go online and do like an online quiz. But a lot of figuring out your type is not just like, oh, I took a quiz and this told me the type. It's really looking into what are the core fears, the core beliefs, the core motivations of each of the 9 types and figuring out which one hurts the most when you read it. Because there's some of them you read, you're like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. I'm totally this number, or I'm that number. And then you read one and you're like, ooh, ouch, that one kind of hurts. That's usually your number. And I love the Enneagram. I just feel like it allows for growth and change in personality types. So it talks about like, what does a healthy 2 look like? What does an unhealthy 2 look like? And so I feel like it allows for a lot of growth and change, but then it also just, I don't know, I just felt like I didn't understand certain parts of myself as well as soon as I understood my Enneagram number and it would talk about certain things. And I just was like, oh my gosh, that's why I'm that way. That makes so much sense. And so, yes, I'm an Enneagram 4, and I highly recommend looking into it. Like I said, yeah, The Road Back to You is a really great book to start with, and it kind of explains a lot of the different types. And I'm such a psychology nerd that I love it. I love Enneagram.
She was diagnosing me within the first few hours of us like hanging out together.
It's true. I was like, ooh, you're this type. I can tell. I think.
She did. All right, Lani, what do you do for self-care? I'm trying not to laugh through that question as well.
I have been trying to learn a lot about mindfulness techniques specifically. I think I actually did like a short little thing for Y'all Fest in I think if you go on their Instagram page, the video is probably still there, but talking about the importance of mindfulness. I've been working a lot on trying to do certain breathing techniques, certain grounding techniques that I think are really helpful when you get into more activated, stressful states. And then figuring out what those things are that bring you personal joy. And like, for me, that is connecting with other people. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in connection. I'm a firm believer in having deep, meaningful relationships with people. And so for me, one of my biggest forms of self-care is reaching out to people like Devri, for example.
When I'm so nice, as you can tell.
She is. She likes to pretend she's not, but she is. And so for me, my biggest form of self-care is reaching out for connection with people, either with friends, with family members. And I love story. Like I said, story for me is one of the biggest forms of self-care, whether that's a movie, a book, just losing yourself in a good story, I think is a really good form of self-care too.
Yeah.
What about you, Devri? What do you do for self-care? I'm not letting you get away with this either.
Do we have time for my self-care list? Yeah, no, so COVID actually, it was funny. I sometimes feel a little bit guilty because COVID, although it's been horrible and stressful and a nightmare for everyone, it was really good for me. I needed to slow down. I needed a like huge wake up call for how much time I actually needed for myself, because I would never have taken as much as I actually need. So I get up really early. My whole schedule flipped during this whole thing too. So I'm usually up about 5 a.m. because I like my house quiet. I have 2 kids. So I really like those hours where no one else is awake. And I spend time in the morning reading, pondering. I started meditating during COVID, so I do like chanting or meditation every day, and then I do my work stuff and try to stay as grounded and mindful as possible. But then in the evenings we pick up round 2 of self-care, and my kids are older. Let me just preface with this, so it does make it easier. I've got a 17-year-old and an almost 15-year-old, so they kind of are doing their own thing. So after dinner, about 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'm like, all right, good night, kids, love you. And their dad makes sure they're not up till midnight. And I go up to my room, I shut the door, I turn off all the lights, I light candles, I take a bath or a shower via candlelight, I lay on my acupressure mat, candlelight.
That sounds wonderful.
It's really nice. Sometimes I'll add a little music if I need, or I'll just do like kind of a mini like unwinding meditation kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then I crawl into bed, and I am telling you, like, the combo of the relaxation with taking all the artificial light out, like there's no overhead lights or anything, I am out in 2 seconds. I can't even tell you the last time. Like, I used to have to lay there for a while, and now I am gone, and I'm calm and relaxed, and it is lovely, and it has completely changed my life, as dramatic as that sounds. So Lani and I did a writer's retreat, and she got to listen to me chanting for 20 minutes every single morning. I was like, so sorry about this.
No, but I liked it. And she even got it. And you would even play music when we were doing writing sprints, where you would play like Gregorian chant. So you were talking about different frequencies of music and how those can like calm the nervous system. And it was incredible to see how like those, these external things like picking certain musics and certain scents and, activating different senses of the brain, those things really do help to calm the nervous system, the stressed out nervous system that, can prevent us from being creative. And so learning different techniques and self-care to calm those down, I think as artists is really helpful too.
Yeah, it was really, so I had this Gregorian chant on, just this one, I found one specific one that's just lovely, but I had it on because I was up forever before long, because I'm weird and wake up at 5 now. And so I had it on really quiet. And when she got up, I just kind of assumed that it would be annoying because it's not, modern, stuff people listen to. And
I loved it.
Yeah, no, I went to go turn it off, and I think I did turn it off. And I
was like, why'd you turn it off?
No, please don't turn that off. I was like, oh, okay. So we listened to it for like half the day. Okay. So yes, there's my lengthy self-care. Okay, this is the last question that we have. What was it like naming your characters, and where did you find or discover the names? This is a lot of writers really love to ask the name question.
Yeah,
it can hang you up. It really can.
It can. And for me, especially finding the right name for a character is so important because it really helps that character kind of take shape and come to life. And I think I actually just did an Instagram post on this too, where for me, I like to pick names that have very specific meanings. Like, I know someone was kind of teasing me. They're like, really, you named your main character Mayana, and it's like Mayan culture. Like, you just took Mayan and added an A to the end. And I'm like, that is not why I named her Mayana. Her name has very specific significance. Thank you very much. And but her name, a lot of the names, especially in the Seventh Son series, are taking from the Nawa language, where I wanted to pick names that had very specific meanings. And so Mayana's name actually translates to hungry, which to me very much defines her character of being hungry for the truth. And that's really what she's searching for. The whole book series is trying to figure out what is the truth. And she's so hungry to figure out what is the truth. And And so for me, that word hungry just really encompassed her character. And so, so that's where her name actually comes from. And Akin's name actually means he of the sun, which I thought was really appropriate considering he's a descendant of the sun god. And his sister's name, Metzi, actually is a variation of Metzli, which means moon. And so it's really cool. There's a lot of mythology in Mayan mythology about twins and the idea of the sun and the moon being twins. And so I very purposely named them that because he represents the sun and she represents the moon. And so all of the characters have names for very specific reasons in my books. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Yay!
What about you?
So I'm not as technical as you are on this. I do have a couple of things that I do. One, I have found names hang me up really bad. If I'm writing and then all of a sudden I add a new character and I lose all momentum because I'm trying to find a name for an hour and a half. So I do go before I get started and I start doing name searches, and I will make list of male and female names that I feel fit the world, that I like. I try to get, similar themes. So I'll start searching. I always, baby names. I search baby names. But I'll do like, Irish baby names or Scandinavian or, just different regions so that you get that similar thing. And in Vinators, I actually did something I hadn't ever done before. Because the world is so large and there's so many different species, I do try to keep similar names within similar species.
Oh,
so
I like that.
Yeah, so like the werewolves, like there's Silent and Bjorn and Cashel, which are all very Viking kind of sounding. And then of course vampires, we've got Dimitri and Verida. So we move over again.
A little more Italian sounding. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Latin.
I try to keep kind of similar flavors so that it's a little easier to distinguish like where we're at and who we're talking to. Which was the first time I've ever done that, but I really like the overall feel of that in the book. But I did pick all of them beforehand and just have like categories of names.
That's
so
smart.
I can just go over and be like, that one, thank you very much.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, okay. I think we've got all your questions. You guys were amazing. Thank you so very much for coming and hanging out with us today. I think Constance is going to be on as long as her internet works. Which ta-da!
Ask and I shall be summoned. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Lani, for celebrating BookTube with us. The Jade Bones. Everyone, go out and purchase it today.
It's amazing. You will not regret it.
Thank you.
It comes highly endorsed. And thank you so much, Devri. You are an apps. Wait, did I just say it wrong again?
You did.
I did. It's not fine. It's not fine at all.
You're close. Devri.
Thank you.
The right way, but people just make up stuff like Deborah, Beverly. It's good. You just never really know what's gonna happen.
Devri is way better though, and I already asked, so that's a shame on me. Everyone, remember her beautiful name because it is beautiful, and of course, and also too, thank you guys for writing sexy men of all varieties for us to enjoy and take part in. We need the marshmallows. We need the bad boys. We need
all of them.
All of them.
All of them. And thank you for bringing them to us, mixed with all kind of badassery as well, because it's the best way to have them. So thank you guys so very, very much for joining us. Everyone, go out and purchase these awesome books, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.